Hi, welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Jen Zielinski, and we had a crazy 2024 election season. With that behind us, we're going to move to another topic, our Minnesota state flag. Welcome, Donna Bergstrom. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for having me here. It's a pleasure.
It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
And you are currently the deputy chair of
the Republican Party of Minnesota. That's correct. Yes, I was appointed in October of 21.
Okay.
Then ran for election to fill out the rest of that seat, and was elected again. And then we have elections now again this December.
Okay, so coming up here.
Coming up.
But what got you to that point, first of all, before we get into talking about the flag? What got you to becoming the deputy chair of the whole state party?
Yeah, I kind of asked myself that too.
Yeah.
How did this happen? Well, I will just have to go back in time a little bit, but I was in the military, so I grew up here in Minnesota and then went away for many years. And when I was eligible to come back, I convinced my husband to move here with me, and then we got involved in our community, and I really started to see a need for more Republican voices because I happen to live in Duluth. So it was a good place to start.
And not only is the city, you're kind of not sure if it's liberal, conservative, but it's definitely become way more liberal.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a real interesting mix because we have the Iron Range so close to us, and that's very significant to our economics up there.
Yes.
But then we also have a very progressive slant to us, I think because of the universities that are there. But I was happy to jump in, and I ran a couple times for the state Senate seat. Yeah, that was good. And then 2018, I ran with Jeff Johnson for lieutenant governor, he for governor. And that really opened my eyes to lots of the party operations, how elections are administered and run, and then how our party operations work. So got involved, and I felt like I had some experience that I could bring to the table and help share with others that are in our political group. So it was kind of maybe a little bit of a journey here, but it seems to be the right place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand the inner workings of the Republican Party itself. We see the elections come around every 2 years. We know somebody gets elected. Every state has it a little bit different. Minnesota is, of course, a different flavor because we have to be.
Yes.
But we have a very good party that's built on the people who are part of it and help run it.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, our platform, I think, really reflects the values of our majority of Minnesotans. And, really what we have to acknowledge is that, we're not as blue, I think, as people like to say we are, because there are some really, really close races. So that tells me, we've got people that are on both sides of the aisle coming out, trying to make their voices heard, and really it's kind of up to the electorate to finally make that decision. But in the end, I like our party platform and I like our values. I have learned really a lot about how our party operates. Some of it's just kind of statutory. By statute, we have to do X, Y, and Z. And then some of them, we get a little more autonomy because we can decide how we want to handle some of our local party operations and that sort of thing. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, even talking to people when I say I'm involved in politics, like, what do you do? And I'm like, I think I drive myself crazy sometimes, but getting involved in that building, even at the local level, it opens your eyes to, like you said, how things work. But moving on to our state, not being so blue, we just changed something to a super blue color, the state flag.
Yes, we did. We actually did. And I'll tell you, I was not pleased with that.
Yeah.
And I know there were other Minnesotans that weren't pleased as well. Because, number one, I think it came very quickly. I think it was sometime around May of 2023 that the legislature passed this commission, Flag Redesign Commission.
Okay.
And then they put it on the fast track. So by September, they were already appointing people to it, 13 appointed people, not elected officials, not people with the exception of Steve Simon, Secretary of State. He was elected, but he was also on that. They were appointed by the governor and some of our other councils like the African Heritage, Asian Pacific, Ojibwe, Dakota. So there's 13 of them appointed. And that was really, I think, what caused us great alarm, because when you're going to change something as significant as our state flag, wouldn't you want the voice of the people involved? And as the deputy chair, I sat down with the party chair, David Hann, and I said, I don't think this is right. And he completely agreed. And at that point, we launched a campaign to save the flag. You can actually go to our website and check it out, MNGOP.org, and then look under Get Involved, Save the Flag. But we really wanted to bring awareness to Minnesotans.
Yeah.
This is happening. And immediately people started asking, why are we changing our flag?
And that was my question, like, why was there even a need to start to change it or change it?
Right. I think there had been voices throughout, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, what have you, because I did see that there was some websites dedicated to that and Facebook posts that, said we need to change our flag, basically because their claim was that it was racist. Presumably having a Native American on a flag, and I will speak from experience since I'm Native American.
You have that experience.
I have that experience. I personally didn't find it offensive or racist. I actually thought it was quite invigorating to see myself on the flag as a Native American alongside a settler.
Some of the original people of Minnesota, Native Americans.
Exactly, yeah. And that helped really establish our state. And this flag is the flag that, of course, has similarly been the one that was flown when we helped in the Civil War. And so it has this great history to it. And now, all of a sudden, I think primarily, my personal opinion, this is just me, Donna Bergstrom speaking, is they had the trifecta. They had the House, the Senate, and the governorship.
Okay, so we have them pushing through. I remember talking to a couple representatives and senators last year. They were pushing through legislation like crazy.
Yes, they were.
And this was part of it.
This was part of it. I think they really saw an opportunity to change this. We on the Save the Flag side held a rally at the state capitol to bring awareness to it. We launched that website. We did media interviews and just really started asking, why are we changing it so quickly? We really want to have Minnesota's voice. And I'll tell you, it was really great working with some of the legislators because they offered solutions. They said, let's put it on, as a referendum. Let's talk about it. And there was nothing. They wouldn't take, the other side, the DFL would not take it up at all. So,
well, in 2023, you know that you have an election coming up in 2024.
Right.
There's going to be, everyone's going to vote because you have president, you have senators, congressional people on that ballot. People are going to come out to vote. Put that on there. Let the voice of Minnesota be heard. And if the voice of Minnesota says, yeah, we need it changed, okay.
That's right. I completely agree. I said that too. It's like, well, let's put it to the people and see what they say. And if the people want it, well, okay. So then I'll keep my flag, at my house, but the state would adopt a different one. But really the DFL just shut out any of that conversation, and we weren't allowed to have any kind of conversation. And I know Representative Olson had even asked, let's just bring it to the legislature. Let's just have a conversation here. And again, that never happened. So
well, they couldn't even figure out. I'll just go back to 2023 if everyone remembers the marijuana bill going through. It's gotten pushed through. But even some of the definitions and selling it is still up in the air. So of course they can't come to this, consensus about a flag.
Right. And some of that too reminds me of the cost.
Yes.
Okay, so originally they said, well, it's not going to cost anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Or it'll be minimal. So yes, they did carve out, I think it was $35,000 or something for the commission to do this work.
Okay.
But the real cost is being carried by the counties and the agencies that have to change their insignias, the uniform patches, flags, all that kind of stuff. And some counties have even said, we can't afford this.
Yeah.
So it's an unfunded mandate that the state pushed on us. The governor approved it and appointed these folks to do this for us. And I don't think that's fair because it really is a burden. There was no sort of phase in. It was May 11th.
Get it done.
Get it done. Yeah. And they had to make the decision by January 1st of 2024 as to the flag design.
And when you talk about uniforms for police or any state or county uniforms that happen to have the flag on it, and I don't have any examples. That's going to be a whole department. That's going to be a whole bunch of people who just need new uniforms, new squad cars, new state government cars, or that updated.
A lot of money, right?
Yes.
And in Duluth, like I said, where I'm from, 2019, we changed our city flag.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's actually, I would invite your audience to look at the Duluth flag and the Minnesota flag. They're really quite similar.
Okay.
But then our agencies, police, fire, and all that, had to go through the change. So there was money that was not in the budget that we had to put money towards.
Yep.
And then now again, we're going to have to do that.
And it doesn't go towards new police officers. It doesn't go maybe towards a new city employee that you need, or maybe those, service or facilities people.
Yeah.
It's not like we had 17 billion lying around our state. Did we have that?
Wait a minute. It seems to me we did have a surplus. And I've even heard numbers now, 18.5, 19 billion of extra surplus money. Those are our tax dollars. But yeah, there was a surplus, and maybe we could have put some of that money on that. But nonetheless, we didn't, and now there's the new flag. But people really kind of keep coming back to this, well, why did we have to change it?
Yeah.
And I still don't have a good answer for that.
Okay.
Because we did do a very informal survey, and we surveyed folks from most of the tribal nations, and predominantly people weren't offended by it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that caused me pause, because I thought, well, wait a minute, if they're saying that it's racist, wouldn't they be the first to speak out? But it actually turns out that Native Americans are and not speaking, for everybody.
Absolutely.
But there's a great movement of trying to keep Native American symbolism, like the Redskins.
Yes.
Us on flags, our image on flags, and those sort of things, relevant, alive, here. Don't erase us.
You lose that representation in society. We see that with some of our food products.
Yes,
we see that, and
right.
And we don't want to talk about like racist symbolism, but we see somebody who's represented in their form.
Right. Right. We love it. It's like, there I am.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me, how there was just this argument that it's racist, we have to change it. But yet when we went and talked to folks, people were saying, no, I actually like seeing myself on there. And as a result of this, I was able to connect with an organization called Native American Guardians Association.
Okay.
And that's primarily what they have taken on, is listening and watching where American Indians are being erased.
Okay.
In the schools, they're made to change names. The Washington Redskins, I keep pointing to that.
Yeah.
Which actually, I again invite your.
That's a whole rabbit hole if you want to go down that.
Yes, right.
Yes.
I was going to say, I invite your audience to look that up, because actually it was quite important to have that symbolism there. But this organization then heard about our efforts. We made connection, and they said, it's just happening all over America.
Okay.
Indians are getting erased from, like I said, school mascots, flags, that type of thing. And so it was really concerning to me.
Okay. And now these commissioners appointed, 13 of them, who appointed them again? Were they elected by the people?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm going to grab my paper here so I can just read it right off of here. But so 3 members of the public were appointed by the governor.
Okay.
And then 1 member appointed, each from Minnesotans of African Heritage, the Council of Latino Affairs, Council of Asian Pacific, 1 representative from Dakota, 1 representative from Ojibwe, appointed by the Indian Affairs Council, Executive Director of the Minnesota Historical Society, or the Director's designee, the Chair of the Capital Area Architecture and Planning Board, or the Chair's designee. Now, does your audience know who the chair is of the capital area?
Probably not offhand.
Not offhand. It's kind of an obscure little thing. It's our Lieutenant Governor.
Oh,
so
Peggy.
The Lieutenant Governor got to appoint. Chair of the Minnesota Arts Board, or the Chair's designee, the Executive Director of the Explore Minnesota Tourism. And then they had ex officio, non-voting, were representatives of the House and the Speaker of the House and the Minority Leader of the House, 2 members of the Senate. So they were 1 representing the Minority Caucus, appointed by the Senate Minority Leader. So they had folks on there, but they weren't able to vote. So the ones that were appointed were the ones that were voting. The ones that weren't appointed, the ones that were actually elected, that 2 members of the Senate and 2 members of the House, who are actually elected, they were ex officio, did not get to vote. So they got to observe and you know, make comments here and there, but quite frankly, it was really an appointed commission, and not people that were elected by you or I to help make this decision.
Yeah, it doesn't even sound like committees. I mean, they sound like great committees that I'm sure have great voices at the state, but doesn't even sound like committees that anybody would elect anybody to. It's not, you know, somebody from a couple of Senate members, couple of House members, maybe even our congressional people or anybody like that.
Yeah. I think really when you read the final report, and there is a final report that was put out, the commission really wanted to put an emphasis on what they consider to be new immigrants. And that was a driving force behind their decisions. And again, I'm going to grab my paper here, I forget, but I think there were over like 2,000 submissions, and many of them were very, very similar, and had, I think, somewhere in the number of 60% or something had an actual star on it of some sort.
And I remember that website came out, you could vote, but it wasn't open that long. It felt like it was open quick, and then it was closed. Everyone's going to remember the laser loons. That was my favorite.
Yes, that was a good one. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, and then because the seal got changed as well.
Yes.
But yeah, we could vote. But you're right. The timeline was very compressed. I think they started meeting when they were appointed in September, and then there were some, you know, administrative things that they went through, but they had to have their decision made by January 1st. So you're talking about 13 people trying to get together, make decisions, get input from the public, and just a very compressed timeline.
And if anybody, you know, looks back at our 2024 election or even 2022, we can start voting in September. So you can vote for the highest member of the country, our president, or the highest member, you know, representative of our state. You have like 2.5 months to vote for them almost, or a month and a half. And then this just didn't feel as long as that. Like, to me, that election is more important. But there wasn't a reason this could be longer.
It was, again, really surprising. Why are we rushing this?
Yes.
You know, it really felt like it was being dictated from on high, if you will. Just get rid of that old flag, get me something new. And I know on X, I've seen it a couple of times where Governor Walz has taken the old flag, replaced it with the new flag in the background where, you know, the photo shoots are, and he said, now that's better. Now, I kind of, you know, gasp and take pause at that, because I just look at our flag and think how beautiful it is. It's got so much history to it, and why would this flag that doesn't have any connection to you know, many of us, why is that better than that one that had so much symbolism and history to it?
And was that even part of his campaign in 2018 when he ran?
Gosh, you know what? I never heard him say that, but I did hear him say he was going to give us $2,000.
Oh, okay.
Right, which I didn't get.
Free money, of course. Of course, you got to make that.
Yeah, from the surplus, but anyway.
Yeah. Now, we had a couple designs before we got to this one. Was the current one that we have, the blue on blue and star, was any of that in the final designs that we had?
Yeah, I think they came down to 6 finalists that they presented, and the one that they selected is similar to the one that we have flying now. They actually tweaked the design that they chose. The star was a little bit different, so then they tweaked it so that it looks as what it is now. So there has been some controversy, and people have talked about that. About, you know, how was that star brought about? I know the commission says it's similar to the star that's at the state capitol. Others have said it's very similar to other immigrant communities' flags. So the star is very unique in that it's 8 points. It's not our 5-point star, which is what we have traditionally had. So, but that was a little bit of a controversy too.
Because we had the rivers going through. We had some flags, again, they weren't the greatest flags, but they had a design to them at least. And then we get this blue on blue. It's supposed to be the shape of Minnesota.
It's a stretch. Can I just be honest here? I think it's a real stretch. I know there's this trend throughout our country or our nation now to do flag changes. I think there's been about 34 flags that have changed across the country, either in cities or states, that share that same 8-point star. So I think that's really interesting and quite coincidental. But there seems to be this real push to sort of get rid of those traditional flags with the symbolism, with the dates, with what
historical value.
Historical value,
Yep.
And then replace them with, I guess I call it sort of crayon colored, block art.
Boring.
Boring. Yeah, to me,
Yeah.
thank you. I think it's a little boring. I love our flag, okay? Well, that's what I'm going to say. I love our flag. So it was really heartbreaking to see it go.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they just change the Colorado flag or one of those state flags?
There is a long list of them. You're exactly right. I know it was like Utah and Colorado and Illinois and many states are offering this as a change. And like I mentioned earlier, in 2019, Duluth changed theirs.
Okay.
Same thing. We got rid of the beautiful history of it and put in the color blocks. Real similar. I think we've got white running through it, but it's very similar with the 8-point star.
Okay, and we're just seeing this throughout the country where we're almost, I think the flags kind of came from, that history part. People created them, they become part of their state and part of who represent their state.
Yeah.
And I think some people don't realize we're not the USA, we're the United States of America. And it almost gets down to that individual liberty, the individualness of the states themselves as many sources of government,
Right. Well, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like your alma mater or your, that type of thing. You want to cheer for it. And that's the identifying really symbol that people can attach to, oh, well, that's Minnesota. And when you see that flying, you're like, oh, that's my flag.
Yes.
So there's just all of that goes behind it. And when we're sort of whitewashing it down and making our state flags look very similar, you're right. What happened to our state identity? That's really concerning too.
Yeah, and we're seeing, again, like you said, the 8-point star is across the country. Is the 8-point star something specific or special to our country?
The 8-point star, from what I've looked at and what I've read from others who have done the research on it, it's really tied mostly with the Muslim community. It's very significant to their community. And again, the commission wanted to push, this new immigrant aspect of our state. And so maybe you have those two tied together. Quite frankly, but in other areas, I don't really know where we have an 8-point star.
That was kind of the weird thing. And I mean, yes, the one at the Capitol, if anyone wants to look it up, it's the one that's in the center of the Capitol, and they light it up on May 11th every year. It is an 8-point star, but it's actually pretty.
Yeah,
compared to the one on the flag.
Yeah, it's very different, and there's history to that too. If you look up how that was designed and laid in our stonework there at the Capitol, there's history to that. So I get that, but when you have this coincidence of all of our states and cities, or not all of them, but many of our states and cities going to this 8-point star, it's really interesting because how many state capitals have that 8-point star laid at the same time our capital was built? You might say maybe one or two, maybe none, I don't know, never looked it up. But when you look at, well, we changed our flag and so did, and then you start naming off all these other states. It just seems like too much of a coincidence.
A drive behind it.
Right, there's some type of drive behind it. That's what I kind of felt too, yeah.
We have a couple minutes left here, so are there last thoughts? You don't have to wrap it up quickly, but just last thoughts you want to our viewers, or maybe some research on their end. Sometimes, sometimes we have to give them homework, go down the rabbit hole of learning about the Redskins or learning about the state flag.
Right, yeah, I welcome your audience to do that.
Yes.
I would just say check out our website, MNGOP.org. Again, check out Save the Flag. We've got lots of information on there. Just my hope at some point that we can bring the flag back.
Yes.
So that would be awesome.
Yes.
And I would really encourage people to just kind of look into it, look in what's happening around the country. If your audience wants some homework, look at the other states that have changed theirs, the designs that came in, how they were so very similar, and how it was that their commissions were decided and things like that. Because, but it is really interesting how so many things have changed, but then they were very coincidentally the same.
Yeah, so it wasn't even like it felt like a design of Minnesota. It was
right, exactly. Yeah, so.
Yeah. And you were at the state fair. The MNGOP always has a booth at the state fair, as does the other party that we're not going to talk about.
Right.
Did people come and talk to you about the flag? Did people voice their opinion, like, hey, let's keep our new flag, or let's go back to the old flag? What did you hear?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah, and the State Fair, that's just a great place for us to hear from so many Minnesotans, you know, like in those condensed days. But we flew the real Minnesota flag. Okay?
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we had the American flag and then the Minnesota flag, and so many people came to us and said, where can I buy that flag? Because they still want to fly it at their house or, you know, wherever. And so we did get a lot of people interested in that. And and then people saying, well, why did we change it anyway? So just those big questions. And I don't think we really have heard a good answer. So we heard a lot from people that were disappointed that we don't have a regular flag, but they did encourage us to try to keep pushing, to keep contacting our legislators and asking them to please bring our flag back, and a lot of really fired up Minnesotans who would love to see that happen.
And I think that's even a push for our viewers, whether your representative is, you know, from the DFL, from the Republican side, ask them.
Sure. Yeah, if they can create another flag redesign commission, let's do it. Yeah, and I've got a perfect design in mind already that I could submit.
Yeah, probably was maybe I don't want to say recycled.
No, just reinvigorated.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So wonderful.
Well,
no, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being on, Donna. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
So nice to talk to you, Jen. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Minnesota Republican Roundtable. And again, if you would like to know more about our flag and even our state party, go to mngop.org, mngop.org. Thank you.